Welcome to another financial update from WVW Broadcast Network. I'm Brannon Howse. Joining me today again is Michael Weiner with Swiss America. Today being July 23rd, 2020 at 3:10 p.m. Central Time. Before we go to Mike, let me set the stage. Folks, we are seeing, record highs since 2011 in the price of gold and silver. We're also seeing home prices jump. In certain parts of the country, there's not enough inventory. People are flooding out of California, Illinois, Colorado, and they're moving into the South, Tennessee, the Ozarks, which encompasses 4 states. And we're hearing from realtors that the home prices are jumping in the tunes of $100,000, $200,000 or more in the matter of a few weeks. And in some cases, there's not enough inventory now. They have to wait a few days for more inventory to come onto the market. Some people are buying homes and they're going to mow them down and build brand new ones. They're moving that fast. Supply and demand is kicking in. Prices are accelerating. What are people sensing? Apparently, they are sensing that we are about to have some major increase in social unrest or a long protracted social unrest. So we're seeing them buying homes and we're seeing home prices go up. Groceries are going up. You've seen that for a few years. We are seeing a coin shortage, a lack of coins moving through the markets and your ability to get them. In some fact, a big grocery store chain has said they're not taking cash anymore. In fact, some places are saying you have to go to the service desk if you're going to pay with cash. Are they going to use this to push us away from cash and get rid of cash? Starting with coin shortage, is there then going to be a dollar shortage, meaning $100 bills will start becoming scarce? We've warned about that for a few years. These are things we're watching. How about ammunition and guns? They're at record numbers. Many guns you maybe want to purchase, you cannot get. One of my friends who's a federally licensed gun dealer is talking about the fact that much of the inventory his clients want, he cannot get. Not only guns, but ammunition. So we're also seeing the price of gold and silver, as I said, go up. All of this is telling us a lot. And the American people, a small percentage, are catching on. Wait till more catch on. I want to reiterate what I just said. A very small percentage of Americans even understand what is happening. Many Americans know something's up, but they don't know what. There's only a small percentage that really know what's happening and are positioning themselves for what they believe is coming. Wait till more people figure this out. And as we're here today on this date of being July 23rd at 3:13 p.m. Central Time, gold is just a few dollars away from $1,900. We're at $1,888.10. Silver is pushing toward $23 an ounce at $22.64. Now, what is going on? Soaring gold and silver prices are reflecting what? Well, that the investors are getting very concerned. They're concerned about the stock market, it not being real, it being fake, that the federal government has dumped in a lot of money, and this is all artificial. They're also getting concerned about inflation and the possibility of major systemic crises within all markets. So we have gold and silver rising. Many of the central banks are stocking up on more, and now we are seeing, the money supply expanding. There's an article over at The Hill, Judd Gregg, when the dollar is worth 60 cents. That means 40% of your dollar, or 40 cents of your dollar, has just been shaven off. So if they take away 40 cents of your dollar, you've just seen a 40% decline in the value of your purchasing power, right? This, again, is what happens when you have inflation. It is a hidden tax. It is redistribution of wealth. It is destruction of wealth. It's destruction of your purchasing power. Let's go back to the original definition of inflation. When too many dollars are chasing too few goods and services. Do we have a lot of goods and services out there today? Not what we used to have. China's not manufacturing and sending their trash to us to sell because we got a problem with China, right? Called the Wuhan virus. We now have China-backed Maoist groups doing riots in the street, burning, looting, rioting. Our government at the federal level has confiscated weapons being shipped into the U.S. from China, including silencers. I read the other day on the radio show at worldviewradio.com from a 1966 manual that was rewritten in 2016, where the U.S. Army in a joint document listed about 20 some odd steps toward insurrection and revolution. This is the Army now, a joint project of the government, military, U.S. Army, and other divisions. not me, not Brannon Howse, not some website. This is the U.S. Army. Some 20 steps to insurrection and revolution. Their own diagram says that we are in the fourth of the final steps. We are only 3 steps, according to the U.S. Army manual, 3 steps from insurrection and revolution. Many would say there is a quiet revolution going on now already with the destruction of our capitalist free market system through this inflation. Judd Gregg writes at The Hill, in the last 2 months this federal fiscal year, the deficit run by our government has exceeded $1.3 trillion. Even without spending, your government is headed toward almost $4 trillion in deficit spending, accompanied by somewhere near $10 trillion of financial infusion by the Federal Reserve. President Trump has suggested another $1 trillion in spending before the election, which Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said is not enough. $3 trillion more is necessary, is the Democratic demand. It is likely that the deficit for this year, just this year 2020, folks, when all the spending dust is finished, it will come in around $5 trillion. Now, when we add the on-record, off-record debt, we are over $100 trillion. We now are in a position where you cannot raise the taxes enough to cover this. So now we are being pushed on us something known as the modern monetary theory. It's not modern. It's not new. It's not a theory. It has been proven false. It is nothing more than quantitative easing under a new name. Keynesian economics under a new name. The printing of money, or the destruction of a free market capitalist system. Capitalism being the pejorative of Karl Marx. What did Keynes say? John Maynard Keynes of Keynesian economics, a Fabian socialist, said, we can steal the majority of the people's wealth and not one man in a million will know what we're doing by a continuous process of inflation. So what do you do about it? We are in an inflationary cycle. There is no way around that. Everything that you're used to paying for is going to go up. This is the destruction of the US dollar by debasement. Now, gold and silver going up, people think, gold's going up. Reality is, folks, the dollar is going down. Purchasing power is going down. If you do nothing, you are going to have your life savings greatly damaged and diminished. Let's talk to Mike Weiner of Swiss America about this today, along with some other very interesting news. Now, our disclaimer, we do not give financial advice. We cannot give financial advice. We don't know your individual situation. It would be impossible for us to do that, and we don't. We give financial opinion and commentary. You need to do your own due diligence. This program is meant for education purposes only. Michael Weiner, welcome back to the program. What do you think of my opening monologue?
I think you were spot on. I think that at the present time, in some ways, you were a little bit generous of being gentle of what's happening. But I don't agree that people don't get it. I think people just don't want to get it. I think people legitimately almost want to sit there and not believe what's happening or pretend that it's impossible to occur. But when we look at these activities happening around this country, most of us, especially those that are over 60 like myself, look at what's going on in this country and don't recognize it. And at the end of the day here right now, to have this type of a change in this short of a period of time is a forewarning of up-and-coming attractions, let alone the fact that we're in an election year, which I think prompted so much of this to happen right now.
Yeah. Well, over at shadowstats.com, a website we have followed for years, John Williams, he talks about both collapsing May exports and imports are signaling a collapsing global economy. So this is not unique just to the United States of America, is it, Mike?
No, it's not. That's why I said in previous shows regarding currencies. The real problem is, and when people look at gold and silver and other issues and say, hey, wait a minute, well, the stock market's going up, so I don't have to worry about having gold. That's not true. Gold has already moved away from that situation. Yes, it is a hedge against inflation, but more importantly, it's being monetized. It's being used and recognized as money globally. And that will force the price up of gold to levels that people never even dreamed of. Because other countries like China, India, Japan, and these other nations do not want to accept currencies of other nations and take their hit on them. When you look right now in the last few months of the gold market and see the activities that are going on around us and see the activities going on in this nation, there's a lot of uncertainty. And every time we turn on the TV, every nation, no matter what, every station, excuse me, no matter what it is, talks about safe haven. And the only safe haven they talk about is gold. They don't talk about currencies. They don't talk about legitimately stocks or annuities. They talk about gold. And when people do not pay attention to that right now, they are going to pay more and have less, or just have less in general, because the Democrats are following the Roosevelt game plan in 1933 of restructuring America by literally shifting the wealth and destroying the middle class.
Well, even those who have kind of poo-pooed gold and silver now are on the bandwagon. Not speaking of anyone in particular, but there have been a lot of groups out there that have, oh, no. But now we see hedge funds are shoring up their markets, their funds, through gold and silver. Money and Markets is reporting that smart money moves show gold is a buy now. That's from Money and Markets, July 15th. So again, we've got a lot of groups that maybe weren't all that positive about it. All of a sudden they are. Newsmax, Wall Street throwing billions at once shunned gold miners. Notice that, folks? Wall Street throwing billions at once shunned gold miners. A year ago, says the article, you couldn't get Wall Street to touch most gold miner stock. Today, it's throwing billions at the industry. Precious metals miners, once seen as too leveraged and high risk for the typical investor, raised $2.4 billion in secondary liquidity offerings during the second quarter. Data compiled by Bloomberg shows. That's the most since 2013 and 7 times more than the funds they raised a year earlier. And then we also see in other reports that the miners can't keep up. Miners can't keep up with gold's breakneck rally. Gold miners have outperformed during this year's market rout and have continued to climb during the recovery. Meanwhile, escalating tensions between the U.S. and China are adding to the case for this safe haven. Many people are saying we are on the verge of a war with China. Dr. Peter Vincent Pry and I have talked a lot on our radio show and TV, and even recently in articles about China and Russia militarizing space. And yet, what do we find today? Russia is involved in testing some kind of anti-satellite technology up in space. So whether it's China, Russia, Iran, America seems to be on the verge of going to war with someone. It seems as though they want war. But again, Russia is testing anti-satellite weapons in space. So again, a lot going on, and a lot of people are running to the safe haven of gold and silver. Now, what's interesting is that we have talked, off the air, Mike Weiner and my friend Wes Peters, we've said, well, we might see $1,800 gold by the end of the year. Wait a minute. We've blown past that. Today, July 23rd, we're almost at 1900. So this appears to be moving very quickly, even more quickly than we thought it might move. And I don't know where it's going, Mike, but we have said for a long time, when things begin to go, they're going to go fast, and a lot of people won't have the chance to get in at the lower price, and they may not even have the chance to get the inventory at all. Just as we saw an inability to get paper towels, toilet paper, canned soup, hamburger meat, things in the grocery store, we may finally find the day that you can't get gold or silver physically, no matter what the price is or how much money you have. There becomes an inventory problem. Agree or disagree?
I agree. This is a totally different phenomenon than we've ever experienced before. We are not experiencing a situation like, for example, in 1979, when there was an inflationary crisis and inflation went to almost 16, 17%, and unemployment went to ridiculously almost 10%. And we saw all these crazy things happen. This is totally different. We've got a planned agenda. Some people believe that the president of China does want war. Some people believe it, and in some respect, I believe it because it builds up his power. But at this point of time in this world, we have a crisis that's not just economic, It's a crisis that's in the monetary respect to their dollars, and it's a crisis, it could almost go like for eating. The people who haven't properly planned and put away for example, they call people preppers. There's nothing wrong to act versus react, to put away food storage, to put away electrical with the generators and things of that nature in event of something happening. Gold is an anchor in a ship that weighs 10,000 tons, that is a 1-ton anchor that steadies and holds a ship. And right now that ship is wavering around in the ocean, and it's being whipped around not just by the United States, but by England, by the European Union, who is showing they are not our friends, by China and India, who have agendas against us, and Russia, who would love to see us fail. So what we need to do individually is act versus react. Don't believe gold is too high, because I personally believe you can more than likely, even under Donald Trump, see $2,800, $2,900, maybe even $3,000 gold next year. However, if the Democrats win, and understand the fact that one gentleman, I'm not going to mention his name, very smart gentleman on Fox Business the other day, mentioned this is not a normal situation when we say if the Democrats come into power, we are going to sit back and be okay, because the last time the Democrats were in, it really didn't hurt the stock market that bad. These are not Democrats. These are socialist anarchists. And their goal is to destroy or maim or hurt. We just saw it the other day when they arrested 2 people who did nothing more than protect their house and their lives. If they would have put down their guns and let these wonderful protesters in, I doubt if they would either be alive physically and well-being, or their house would still be standing. But they are being penalized, and the bad guys are being made to look good. How can anything make sense in an upside-down world that you and I have talked about for the last 14 to 21 months?
Absolutely. The number to call if you want some free information on precious metals, or to talk to Wes Peters and Mike Weiner, 602-485-3362, area code 602-485-3362. Look, you're just calling to get some free information, do your due diligence, and then ask a lot of questions, see if this is right for you. 602-485-3362. 3362. Again, 602-485-3362. Let me just mention quickly as well, from an inflationary standpoint, the price is going up. There may be a correction. Things will correct. They'll go back up, and they'll correct, and they'll go back up. And every time they tend to go back up higher. And the correction is lower, is not as low as the last time, and then it goes higher, but it keeps climbing on the chart long term. That's what we're going to keep seeing, I believe, if they continue to expand the monetary system the way they are. And that's what this big push now is for, what they're now calling modern monetary theory. Democrats are on board, many Republicans are on board, academics are on board, and this is the idea that, hey, people burning, looting, and rioting, they want more social programs and redistribution of wealth, then give it to them. How do we pay for it? Do we raise taxes? No, we don't have to raise taxes. We'll just expand the money supply through modern monetary theory. Print the money. Well, that is a tax. It's a hidden tax, but it's a tax, and it is a destruction of wealth, and it creates inflation. Gold is not really going up. The dollar and its purchasing power is going down. That's what's really going on. Now, it's not only going to be inflation that you see indicated through the gold and silver market, but we're seeing inflation through the price of everything else, through the consumer index pricing. This is, the government wouldn't lie about it. If they would actually not cheat and lie, you could actually have a true rating of the price of inflation, the cost of inflation. But they cheat and lie, and every party does it, every administration does it, because they want to look better than things really are. But you're going to see an increase, as you already are, in groceries. So let me just simply say, many of you are purchasing not only gold and silver, but I think you need to get an education and consider what's going to be happening at your local grocery store. We've seen the destruction of the just-in-time inventory and the inability to get things. We have been recommending you buy precious metals, our opinion. We've also been recommending that you have a preparation plan when it comes to emergency food. Some people wanted to mock that when we started offering those services to our people, because our people asked for it. But now nobody's laughing, because they've seen that there's been a disruption in our grocery stores, and many people couldn't get basics like Campbell's soup or even hamburger meat, and paper towels and toilet paper and other staples, spaghetti sauce. This is not over. But even if there isn't a disruption, is not a disruption in the food supply, but there could be through riots and other things. But what if there is a massive spike in groceries? What if we're talking about a massive run of inflation till we even get to hyperinflation? Well, again, you can pay more for gold and silver in the future, and you can pay more for freeze-dried food in the future. I personally prefer to buy things when they're cheaper. So I would also let you know that we do and are continuing to fill the freeze-dried food orders. We just had another 2 pallets come in today, July 23rd. So we're doing better. There was a delay there. Our delay now is drastically shrinking from the time that we're able to receive it to the time we're able to ship it, because the Mountain House company is processing it 7 days a week, literally 24 hours a day. So if you want to get it, I suggest you go ahead and order it at WVW-TV.com/store. WVW-TV.com/store. I've got enough for my family for a year. I used to have enough for 6 months. I've increased that to a year. You do what you want. Some of you maybe are on a fixed income and you want to do this over the course of time, a little every month. But you'll find the ability to buy that and go ahead and process that on our website at WVW-TV.com/store, WVW-TV.com/store. Now, if you don't want to order it online, you don't have a real comfort level with ordering online and all that, then you can call the number 901-825-0652, and Melissa will help you get that ordered. 901-825-0652. Again, 901-825-0652. Mike, I know that you're an expert on economics and whatnot, but we offer services to our people. We give them an education, we offer services, and they can do what they will with it. You're offering a service, we're offering a service when it comes to freeze-dried food. You're offering a service when it comes to the education of precious metals and the delivery thereof. What, however, do you think about the issue of inflation when it comes to food?
Oh, look at history. I mean, the bottom line is you're doing everyone a big service, as it might be, because it's a lot cheaper to be buying it the way you are offering it than to go into the store and be forced to pay whatever the price is. How many people right now paid attention to the price of what they paid for a roll of toilet paper during this pandemic? They didn't care. They walked in, emptied the shelves off. They could have paid triple. And it was interesting that nobody saw the grocery stores talking about specials or coupons or anything. They were cleaning up. Well, it's the same thing theoretically. When you can't literally have enough food supplied, what ultimately happens? The price goes up. And people don't want to pay attention. And if you don't pay attention to prices, you're foolish. And, the same thing is applicable to our industry with the people out there right now who've been following gold for years and say, well, I've been waiting. Maybe it's too high right now. Well, this is a wake-up call. Don't go talk to your financial planner, because at the end of the day, when it's the same thing of going to talk to a friend of yours, should I go buy freeze-dried foods? When you're sitting in the kitchen and the only thing you got to eat is a bowl of cereal because you didn't plan ahead and put something aside, and your friend's eating dinner across the street, who's losing? The bottom line is you have to be one-dimensional nowadays. You have to think of your family the way Brannon, the way you are, and putting away freeze-dried foods for your family. I do that for myself and for my grandkids and my sons. They might not want to pay attention to it, but they're not going to be hungry at the end of the day, and nobody's going to stop it. The same thing as it is with your portfolio. I cannot tell you how many times Wes and I receive phone calls from people, well, I'm going to go back and discuss it with my financial guy. Well, who's controlling who here? We don't tell you hit Swiss America and empty all your money out and put it into gold. We talk about it as an anchor, a small strategic part of your portfolio, and failure to act on it, you will be the only one to suffer. And I just talked to a lady from Worldview today who said, 2 years ago, you told me to buy gold. 2 years ago, my financial provider told me not to. And here I am now, and I want to buy today, and I'm paying $400 more. And the only person who's paying it more is me. So reality is You need to be one-dimensional. You need to be one-dimensional for your health. You need to be one-dimensional for your family and for your food and putting away properly, be it the freeze-dry foods and people who are doing things with generators. And you need to create a stability and an anchor for the craziness that we see going on around us. Because the people who are listening to this radio show, we go on and we look at what's going on in Portland, Oregon. We look at what's going on in Minnesota. We look at what's going on in New York City, and we just go, that is terrible. I can't believe how bad it is. But guess what? If the Democrats, who have said nothing about it, and I call them socialists, are going to sit back because they want it to come to your neighborhood too, because ultimately they will use that as a means of controlling society, tearing down of normal moral values and standards. That's it.
Absolutely. Mike Weiner of Swiss America, some free information, or to talk to them and get some education and ask questions and do your due diligence. The number for them and West Peters there is 602-485-3362, 602-485-3362. What we're also looking at here, Mike, is a banking crisis. We were starting to tell our folks back in January of 2020 that something was up with the banks, and maybe it was even December, but we were talking about the repo market, the overnight loans, the short-term loans. But we were talking about the fact that I believe there's something going on because of the fact that the government was having to inject liquidity into the overnight markets between banks, known as the repo market. And I began to warn my audience, I think there's a liquidity problem with the banks. I think we're headed toward a banking crisis. And that was before the Wuhan virus came to America. But now we're back in the news. We're seeing back in the news this issue of a banking crisis. Over at Swiss America, you guys linked to an article today where a guy is being interviewed, an Alsdar McLeod. I think he's from over in London. He says, I find it difficult to see how they can close it, meaning the ability of gold markets. The possibility of a default and the possibility of a force majeure is increasing all the time in this current situation. This is a difficult thing to predict, but unless someone can show me there is a way out of this, I can't see how these banks can be rescued. What he's talking about, Mike, is that some of these banks are selling gold on paper. And then some of these financial groups that are selling gold on paper, the folks are going to turn around and ask for the physical possession of it, and they're not going to have it. And what they're going to have to do is hand them cash or a force majeure. I guess there's something in the small print about that, being able to give them cash. But in other words, they're not going to get their gold and silver because and again, this is something we've been saying for years, that when the music stops, for everybody holding it on paper, someone's going to end up sitting on the floor, correct?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what you're talking about. When the music stops, where are you going to be? And unfortunately, most people do not want to deal with it till after the fact. And then we try to sit back and plan ahead of it. And right now, the banks, we talked about this 8 months ago, about repos. Repos are when banks, at the end of the day, everybody wonders, well, how does everybody deal with each other? They adjudicate through the Federal Reserve, moving money through Federal Reserve wire lines and settling up. And when they're short money all the time is when they have to come up with money with the Federal Reserve. And at the end of the day here, it's always been a systemic problem with currencies. It went back to the euro. Now we see the situation in January when England was leaving the European Union and the euro was collapsing. The British pound is in trouble. And then we see the Chinese moving in years ago and amassing metric tons of gold, more than this nation has. So realistically speaking, you're absolutely right. When the music stops, where are you going to be? Are you going to sit back like a lot of the people in the pandemic? We all can step back. Every person listening right now, think about the day that they shut down America and the next day when you wanted to go to the bank couldn't figure out what they were going to do. There were people who couldn't get anything done for weeks. There were people who couldn't go to their brokers for weeks. Their brokers are operating out of their house. Things are backed up. At our company, Swiss America, I cannot tell you how many people who own businesses who had value in other areas that needed to meet responsibilities sent in their gold grudgingly. And they'd say to me, Mike or Wes, I don't want to do this. I have no choice. And my answer to them is very simple. That is exactly why we did this in the first place. Because we are here, because when the music stopped, we're the only one standing. We're the only chair for you to sit in. We got you your money. We helped you at that time. And now here we are 2 months later, and everybody's back to the same thing. Oh, the music's going, it's okay. The next time it stopped, it might not start again for 2 months. It might start for 2 years. Then what are you? You're going to be in the throes and the holding pattern of the people who want to control you. That's the reality. It's the same thing with food, Brannon. Literally, when we went into the grocery stores during the pandemic, you want a toilet paper, you got to ask them, when's the next time you're going to have a load? Not what's the price of them. Or listen, you're out of meat, when's the next time you're going to get a shipment of meat in? Not what's the price of it, when am I going to get it? That's why people need to deal in both freeze-dried foods, other forms of support for their family. And if they're older and over 60 and your children have not been raised by myself, by what I call Depression-era babies, you better sit back and figure to cover a little bit for them also, because they don't want to pay attention. They don't believe any of this is possible. And here we are. Like you said, the music can stop any day. It stopped 4 or 5 months ago, and here we are, and everybody's talking about a country that will never be the same. My question is, will it?
All right, Mike Weiner, listen to this. This, again, is this financial gold expert out of London. He says, talking about the markets and people buying the futures market and having it on paper, you're not going to get the gold when they need it. It won't be enough to go around. He says, I quote, I think we'll be at the end of the futures market because nobody would trust it as a means of delivering gold. I mean, it would have demonstrably failed. So why would you play with it again? Of course, the failure of Comrex contracts is a very, very serious issue. The question I think you really want to know, the answer is, how long will that take? In my view, not very long. So he says it's not going to be long before a lot of these future markets, they won't be able to deliver people's gold from paper into the physical. He said this is the natural consequence of the contraction of bank credit. There is the effect of tariffs on top of that turn a normal cycle of bank credit contracting into a 1929 to 1932 horror show. If you have a banking collapse, then those assets' values will just go down in the pan. The next thing, of course, bond yields start rising because of the inflationary implications of a financial collapse. At that stage, government financing becomes impossible because governments are, in effect, bankrupt. That is the lesson of history. Everything goes away. If you destroy the currency, you destroy all the financial assets that are priced on it. This just happens. It just goes. He says, I think the problem of the COMEX are going to happen considerably before that. Tell me, what is the COMEX? Explain that to our folks.
COMEX is the commodity exchange that was formed in the mid-'70s by a gentleman that's a friend of mine, one of the founders, Dr. Henry Jarecki, who owned Mikado Metals, that was the oldest gold dealer in the world that set the London fix. At the end of the day, the New York Commodity Exchange is where gold and silver is traded, besides in Chicago, but that's the main place. Used to be in One World Trade Center. It was in Four World Trade Center. I used to have a seat on the New York Commodity Exchange. At the end of the day, understand the fact that it's real interesting, but we're talking about paper again. When you're talking about paper contracts, these ETFs that they sold before, people who are trying to protect themselves, you're going to buy a picture of food or you're going to buy freeze-dried food. You're going to have a picture, you're going to eat the picture, you're going to have a future contract with a grocery store that's going to promise to deliver you groceries, and then the day they're supposed to deliver it, they don't have it, and then Brannon Howse and his family or my family and I are going to be sitting there taking care of our freeze-dried food and eating. At the end of the day, it's the same thing with gold and silver. Paper people. I'm talking about this country, which is backed by paper currency, has nothing behind it, stocks and certificates that you read, and annuities that have fine print regarding force majeure every single day of the week. So does your ETFs. Why in this type of a climate would you buy the horse or the jockey? Would you want to sit back and own something that you've got to go to somebody and say, Mother, may I please have it? The idea of owning gold is like owning food, own freeze-dried food, own physical gold. These people historically historically in the past have muffed it, as it might be with the ETF market, and the commodities market. They oversold and legitimately just back up and say, oops. The oops happens to you, not to the guy who sold it to you, because the guy or gal already got their commissions. So you have to pay attention to the fact that in a world that we're in right now, if you want to bet on the price, go to the commodities market, make your money, and you're just another paper person. If you're going to sit back and you're going to protect assets and you're going to do it, you don't do it in the New York Commodity Exchange. You do it in the cash market with companies like Swiss America. The difference between us and other firms today, when gold is so hard to get, today when silver is so hard to get, what separates us is we don't sell and then go buy it. We sell out of our inventory, and we sit on hundreds of millions of dollars of available gold and silver to us. So we even have dealers calling us up pretending to be people trying to buy gold and silver right now. That's the world we live in. If you're going to buy COMEX, you might as well just go to Vegas and have fun, because you're just betting on the price, not owning the metal, and they can be short, and there's nothing you can do about it at that time except hang on and hope you might recover something.
So he's saying that there could be a real problem with the COMEX and these people that have bought on paper in the futures. And he says, I think the banking crisis could start soon. Look what's happening to their balance sheets. I think the collapse is likely to be so rapid that in the absence of any other information, the best thing to do is to hold on to gold and silver and insurance policy just in case I'm right. And really that's what we're talking about here, is a wealth insurance. What we're talking about here, folks, is not trying to make money. If you're doing it for that purpose, you're doing it for the wrong reason. What we're talking about here is trying to preserve your purchasing power, a small percentage of your savings that you have invested into precious metals. We're also trying to get you to understand the importance of understanding how to be outside the system. You don't want to be under their control. You don't want to be where they lock things down, they're going to reset everything, and in the meantime, you have nothing. This happened in Cyprus not too many years ago. And by the way, if you talk about a dollar reset, and the globalists are talking about their big conference coming up in January 2021, global reset, they're talking about a monetary global reset. Again, we looked at the article by Judd Gregg at The Hill talking about the headline being when the dollar is worth 60 cents. So you're talking about 40% of your dollar is gone. That's what you call a global reset, or a reset of the currency. Now, when they've got you with no coins, and then eventually they move to no paper, and everything's a digital dollar as they're pushing this digital dollar, they just can take 40% of your bank balance, and what are you going to do about it? If they reset the dollar because of the massive inflation, and they take 40% of your paper money or your digits in the bank, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. You're under their control. You're in their system. If you're outside the system and you're in precious metals, that price is going to go up to offset your loss, because that's what gold and silver does. Correct, Mike?
Absolutely. Gold and silver goes up to protect what you lose on the other end, and that's exactly why we're here. If you want to bet on price, go right ahead, okay? And at the end of the day, understand the fact that there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can sit back and either, wait until pay more or not. It's as simple as that.
Here's an article over but let me get the number again if you want to call and get some free information from Wes Peters and Mike Weiner, and talk to Wes, 602-485-3362, 602-485-3362. If you're interested in the emergency supply, food supply, we got 2 pallet loads today, and we're quickly filling orders and ordering more. So we're actually moving much quicker than we were. So you can go ahead and get your order in. It could still take a few weeks, but we're not at the 8-week, 2-3 month like we were last time. We're only a few weeks out now. So it's getting better, and we're ordering more inventory. Each order we're ordering a little bit more than we did in many cases the previous order, so that we can keep filling the large volume of orders that are coming in. So if you want information on that emergency food, you'll find it on our website at WVW-TV.com/store, WVW-TV.com/store. If you prefer to order over the phone, Melissa will take your order. You can call her at 901-825-0652, 901-825-0652. My friend Jim Palava over at Financial Sense interviewed a guy He interviewed Russell Napier on the issue of the inflation and the money, and he said the governments have stepped in and through credit guarantee schemes offered to banks, governments have taken control of the asset side of commercial bank balance sheets, and as it has been since the invention of fractional reserve banking, when a commercial bank extends assets, it creates liabilities. We call it money. Unbeknownst to most people, the money has moved from central bankers to governments. That's what I call the silent revolution. And that won't stay silent for long. It won't stay silent for long. Given the proclivity of politicians to print too much money and to create too much money, we should now be betting on inflation. Even if the near-term outlook is for lower inflation or even deflation, the change in that mechanism is so powerful enough that the markets will soon begin to price in higher inflation. Well, how could you not if you're expanding your balance sheet by $5 trillion just in 2020 alone? And at the end of the day, Mike, what we're talking about here is a massive redistribution of wealth scheme, because as the government expands the money supply, gives it mostly to big business people, their buddies, their friends, as we saw through the Paycheck Protection Program, went to a lot of multi-millionaires. A lot of the little guys never got it. They expanded the money supply to get it. Those rich people take that money, and what do? They turn around and buy hard assets, land, gold, silver, houses. And the average person ends up losing their wealth, just as John Maynard Keynes said, through this continuous process of inflation, which one man in a million cannot diagnose, correct?
Correct. This goes back, Brannon, in very simplest terms to try to let the people who are listening to this understand what's going on around them. We are sitting back and telling you of what's happening in a global world and all around you, which includes your own personal space. But the problem is, until it hits them right between the eye, they don't want to pay attention to it. We sit and see what's going on in Portland. I guarantee you, if you went to somebody who was a citizen of the city of Portland literally a year ago and said to them, hey, 12 months from now, you're going to have a bunch of thugs running your city. You're going to have the mayor condoning it, the governor condoning it. You're going to have them in Seattle taking and tearing apart their police department, shutting down their jail, and maybe turning their municipal court on. And where is Microsoft and all these billionaires behind their fences and ultra-rich gates that they have to try to protect themselves while they're watching the country get decimated? And you'll sit back and say, why? Because the ultra-rich in this country believe they are part of the elite group. Everybody below them, and that could be somebody who is just a wealthy businessman now, owns a nice-sized company, means nothing. They want to legitimately make this nation in a view that they think, and they want to take control of our money and then ultimately control us. And when you control your food by controlling the product that you have at home, like what Brannon offers, or when you control the gold that you have at home, you have an asset that is yours. You don't have to run anywhere. And I guarantee you, if I am standing in line somewhere buying food with a gold coin, and you're standing there with a certificate from Morgan Stanley for an ETF you own, I'm eating first.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep. All right, folks, we're about out of time. If you want to get the information from Wes and Mike at 602-485-3362, 602-485-3362. And again, don't forget what happened in Cyprus, folks, where they took a percentage of the people's bank accounts. The former Fed Chairman Yellen, she said before congressional testimony, it won't be a bailout, it'll be a bail-in. They're going to come after your money, they said. This is, the concern also, even if they just do a global reset and devalue the currency, as Judd Gregg is predicting in The Hill, when he said the dollar is going to be worth 60 cents when they continue doing this through the destructive nature of inflation or modern monetary theory, quantitative easing, whatever they want to call it. So again, we're offering you the education, and then you do the due diligence. Start by getting the information from Wes and Mike at 602-485-3362, 602-485-3362. And then again, if you want information on the emergency food supply, you'll find it on our website at WVW-TV.com/store, WVW-TV.com/store, or you can call Melissa at 901 825-0652, 901-825-0652. A lot of people made fun of us for years for telling people about gold and silver. Well, they're not laughing now as gold approaches 1900 today, silver almost 23, and they're not laughing after grocery stores were shut down and they couldn't even get basic necessities like soup and spaghetti, sauce and noodles and hamburger meat. So again, people are realizing why we were telling them this a long time ago. The sad thing is they could have bought at the lower price, the lower gold and silver price, when we were telling them this years ago, but now many will pay at least $400 an ounce or more. But I guess folks won't be thinking about that when it goes where we all think it's going. And again, you're not buying this to make money, you're using it to preserve your purchasing power, not be locked down in their system, and to have some independence. So folks aren't laughing anymore and mocking us like they did when we were telling them to buy gold and silver as a percentage of your portfolio, even 10%. Or what you deem to be best. We're not talking a huge percentage here, people. We're talking about being reasonable. But they're not laughing about that anymore when they see what's happening. And they're not laughing so much when we tell them to have emergency supplies on hand. And we haven't even gotten into the national security aspects of EMP and cyber hacking and other things. We've just been talking today just from the economic standpoint. So there are a lot more things that can happen that will impact both economics and the food supply, the basic necessities to provide for your family. So we hope this has been an educational process. Thank you so much for listening to the WVW broadcast financial update for July 23rd, 2020. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. Take care.